gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's April the 3rd, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined today by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And Matt, we let 24 hours or so, really like 36 hours, sort of simmer here to let all the emotions of Miami's advancement to the Final Four, their experience at the Final Four, kind of calm down a little bit. I was there in Houston, and first I got to tell you, the Final Four is quite a spectacle, man. I mean, it is unbelievable, and I saw the eyes of the kids when they walked out there to a full football stadium, and it was a little different than their shoot-arounds in an empty stadium, and understandably, they were a little uptight, I think, at the beginning of the game, probably more so than Connecticut. I'm not quite sure I have an explanation for that, but maybe the big difference in the game was that Connecticut jumped out to a 9-0 lead, and making those 3 3-pointers at the start of the game, I think created a little bit of anxiety for the Hurricanes. And even though they were able to recover from that and come back and tie the score, I'm not sure they ever really recovered from it from a mental standpoint. And Connecticut was very, very good. I was very impressed with their strategy, their execution, and the Miami Hurricanes would have had to play a very good basketball game, which they have done over and over and over again this entire season. They certainly were capable of that, to be in that game in the final 5 minutes or so and have a chance to go to tonight's national championship game. And as we know now, that just did not happen. So I thought we would start out today and talk a little bit about that, talk a little bit about the season, talk a little bit about where this team goes from here. And I've got my thoughts on all those subjects, but I'll toss it to you first just to get your general feelings after watching the whole March Madness over 3 weeks play out and Miami's Final Four experience play out as well.
I mean, I guess I felt like Nigel Pack's shoe watching the game. I was just lost. I was just lost watching this team because it wasn't the same team.
No.
And what bothered me, we see so often, it's called coach talk, right? But the coach takes responsibility. The coach says, "I didn't do it. I didn't do enough. I failed the team. It won't happen again because X, Y, and Z." The buck stops with me, right? That's not Coach L, man. Coach L just tells the truth. And Coach L said it was the player's fault. These are quotes from Coach L.
You and I talked about that.
Before you interrupt me, let me read his actual quotes.
Okay? Well, I just want to say I'm not sure it was as pronounced as you thought it was.
Well, I didn't think so either until I just literally looked up his quotes while you were doing your opening, okay? And it's all true, but you don't get coached this honest. It's nothing wrong that he did. It's just the truth. He said, being in the Final Four, this is a quote, being in the Final Four for the first time in school's history, the guys being a little bit anxious, and we really never were able to just relax and play our game. True. He said that on defense, quote, there was no help like we intended. He said, trying to guard Sanogo, quote, I think we could have done a significantly better job on him if we could have executed our game plan. He said, quote, you could really tell that mentally and emotionally we were not together. He said, quote, every guy wanted to play so hard they forgot how we play, which is really smart. And we didn't execute what we planned to do at either end of the floor. He said he told the team at halftime to share the ball, and they didn't. And this was in a 2-minute window of his talk. Okay, yeah. He clearly stated, which was great for reporters. He said, "This is what happened." He said, "This is not my fault. We had a great game plan, and the team didn't follow it. And you know what? It's the truth. And good for him to say it."
Well, we don't know if we don't know how great the game plan was or wasn't because it didn't.
He seems to think they didn't follow a game plan, and he seemed to sound like they maybe could have won if they had followed it. I mean, and I don't disagree, by the way.
Well,
they missed a million layups. They weren't sharing the ball. Isaiah Wong just kept dribbling into traffic like in a panic. They didn't play their normal smart game. He's 100% right. I'm sure he did not draw it up the way it looked because it looked haphazard. it looked like Connecticut was the greatest offense in the world, like just passing the ball constantly with no, they had some turnovers, but Connecticut's offense looked so much faster than Miami's offense. And that shouldn't have been the case because Miami's offense has been really, really good all year.
Well, I don't think it was a case of Miami being outclassed. I think that maybe the way the game was played out gave that impression to people, but they weren't outclassed by Connecticut. They were every bit as good a basketball team as Connecticut, but they did not play as well as Connecticut in this particular game. And, yes, I think they were anxious at the beginning. Yes, I think that Connecticut's 9-0 start rattled them a bit, but they came back from that. To me, the key was Connecticut's defensive strategy and how they were suffocating Miami's penetrators. And the guy that they chose to leave alone was Wooga Poplar. And early in the game, Miami was getting Wooga the ball. And Wooga has the potential to be a superstar next year. Like, he has so much physical ability, but it's not going to happen unless he learns how to play under pressure. And he had the same problem last year in the Elite Eight game against Kansas, where he had wide open jumpers and clanked. I think he's like 0 for 7 now in his last wide open jumpers in these big games. And going 0 for 5 and not making 2 or 3 of those, I thought took Miami right out of the game, and they never recovered because it allowed Connecticut to stick to its strategy. And it got to the point where Jim Larinaga had to pull him from the game. And, I feel almost guilty expressing this opinion because of how far that kid came this year and how good of a player he became on both ends of the floor. But his game failed him on the greatest stage on Saturday night. And Miami could not afford for that to happen because that's what Connecticut was giving them. And instead of it being, 4 or 5 point game at the half, it was a 13-point game. And that's a huge difference. And Miami was able to cut the lead down. It got up to as much as 20. They were able to cut it down to 8 a couple times, but they couldn't get past that point. It was too much to ask against the quality of a team that is going to win the national title tonight. I have no doubt in my mind they are going to blow San Diego State right out of the stadium there. And, it's a shame for Miami. You do not get this opportunity. Usually you don't get it twice. It might have been once in a lifetime. And I think they were good enough to win the national championship if they had played well, played their game and given themselves a chance. They didn't give themselves a chance for a number of the reasons that Coach L said, for the reason that I just said. And the result was a UConn decisive victory and going into the national title game. So, Matt, I think the issue now becomes what is next? Now, I did a lot of digging on that. I guess 2 nights ago in Houston. And I think this is going to be interesting. I think they have a chance to bring this team back almost entirely intact, okay? But with a few changes that will allow them to get better. Here is what I see playing out. I think Isaiah Wong, the ACC Player of the Year, is going to figure out that he has far greater earnings potential coming back as the ACC Player of the Year with a souped-up NIL deal with John Ruiz and his Life Wallet, maybe with a separate NIL deal from the other Miami collective, and then additional corporate NIL deals that his agent is able to find for him. I think Isaiah Wong could potentially make almost $1 million next year if everybody does the right thing by him and helps him maximize his value. And that is far more than he is going to have the ability to make if he goes to Europe to play basketball. He does not have an NBA game. He is not going to get drafted by the NBA. And I think that the first thing that's going to happen is Isaiah Wong is going to get with his family and his agent, and they are going to decide, you know what? We are going to take a shot here and bring this thing back at Miami, and we're going to see how far we can go with this NIL thing. Number one, it gives them the chance to capitalize on his ACC, Player of the Year honor. It allows him to stay in the United States He's got a girlfriend that I know is very important to him, allows them to be together, stay at Miami, stay with his brothers, that they've developed a great bond, and come back next year and try to win it all. Okay, so that's the first thing that I think has a great chance to happen. Now, Nigel Pack, Norchad O'Meara, they're back next year. Okay, that's a given. Luka Poplar, he is back next year. That's 4 of the starting 5. So you got to replace Jordan Miller, but you can do that in the transfer portal. Take that one spot and bring in a transfer. Now you've already got one recruit committed. There's a second one that I know they're working on, a foreign player that could end up being a second commit. So you might need to free up a spot or two to bring in the pieces that will allow you to compete for the national title. You got a couple young players that I don't know, what their future is like or not. That's going to have to be a discussion between them and the coaching staff. But I think that Harlan Beverly is one in particular that is seriously thinking of going to the transfer portal. So if that happens, as I suspect it might, that would open up a spot. Looking at the roster, Anthony Walker, I believe, can come back for one more year. I'm not sure that they will want him back for one more year. They need to get better at that position. They can only get better if he leaves. So he is a fourth-year junior. He will have graduated from school. I think there's question whether Anthony Walker comes back. Another guy that I think that you have to think about is Ja'Kai Robinson. He's in his second year in the program this year. Did not come close to competing for playing time. I'm not sure if he might not be headed to the transfer portal. Now, looking at the other guys, I'll just go down. AJ Casey, freshman forward, played a little bit this year. I think he will come back as more of a wing player next year and try to be Jordan Miller's replacement. Certainly compete for that. Maybe with Christian Watson, who's a guy that the coaches I know feel they can develop into a very good player. He did not play very much this year. He undoubtedly got redshirted, I'm sure. And they will bring him back and try to develop him further here over the next 8 months to see what he can contribute next year. I think Bensley Joseph will be back. Favor Air is a young, big guy that they're trying to develop. He'll, I think, obviously be back. I'm assuming Danilo Jovanovic, the freshman forward, who also would have been redshirted this year, I assume he will be back. So really, you're only looking at potentially maybe 3 to 4 scholarship openings, depending on the way this shakes out. And I think they need to get a big guy for sure with one of the transfer spots, and a couple high school recruits, and maybe not. They have room for one more transfer. If Wong comes back, they don't need guards. Okay, they'll have a high school recruit guard, and they'll have a big high school big guy recruit. Hopefully, a transfer big guy. So they don't need a ton of pieces. And then, of course, maybe a forward to compete with Watson and Casey to replace Jordan Miller. So this is a basketball team, Matt, that looks like it could be a Final Four team that comes back as close to intact as possible, which is absolutely amazing in today's college sports landscape.
Yawn.
Why yawn? They made the Final Four.
Because you're paying Wong. You're paying a guy. You're paying a guy. You ask me why. I'll tell you why.
I always thought was a fan of yours. Stop me in what was that? Energy Stadium. Yeah, and Saturday night stops me in Energy Stadium at the Final Four, and he says, "You tell Matt that he is way too damn negative." I said, "All right, yeah, I'm happy to tell Matt he's way too damn negative because I agree with you." I mean, how do you say yawn when a team that made the Final Four has a chance to run it back and come back almost intact and try to go the next step next year? How is that a yawn?
Because you're, again, misunderstanding what I said. I was trying to explain it, but you talked for 10 minutes about Nonsense. That's why I'm
People might be
yawning.
interested in what this team is going to look like going into next year. I was giving them scoop.
Here's why it's nonsense. You're going to pay a guy who's a European player, not an NBA first-round draft pick, $1 million next year, instead of going on the transfer market and getting a first-round NBA pick, which you can get for $1 million. Why are you throwing John Ruiz's money away, Gary? It makes no sense. If you're going to pay a guy $1 million, get an NBA first-round guy, okay? You got all this money, and your team didn't make it and lost, in my opinion, their best all-around player. You can get rid of Isaiah Wong and bring in an NBA first-round draft pick like other top teams do. No, I'm not done. And here's my other theory.
Can I call time out here for a minute?
No. And here's my other
theory. I have a question for you in honor of my main man, Jay Collette, on our message boards. Why the hell can't they walk and chew gum?
Because if you're given $1 million, you have a budget, I assume, of some kind.
There's no budget. There's no budget.
$10 million, $100 million.
Let me tell you something. No, there's not a budget. And I had a conversation with somebody, and I can't say who it was, but I did have a conversation with somebody about this exact subject, about budgets. Okay. The budget at Duke, the budget at Carolina is probably $2.5 million. The budget at Miami this year was probably about $1 million. Okay. Like, it is time to invest in basketball. You have a Final Four program now. They need to spend what they need to spend to give this team a chance to win it all next year. Okay, so you can bring Isaiah Wong back. He can get almost $1 million potentially in NIL deals. Maybe it'll be a little less, but you also can go out and get that free agent that you're talking about. You have to be able to do both. And I'm going to throw out a guy, and then I'm going to let you speak some more. But there's a guy that I think they should target. And I can't remember his name because it's escaping me right now. But the center at Michigan, who's one of the best players in the country, is now the best player in the transfer portal. He's a 7-foot monster that if they could get him to come to Miami, they will go into next season as maybe the favorites to win the national title. How about that? And they can walk and chew gum and bring Isaiah Wong back.
I mean, again, you're just talking nonsense. If you're going to pay Isaiah $1 million and you have no budget, then you know what? Isaiah Wong's a backup.
I didn't say they're going to pay him $1 million, by the way.
You still don't let me talk.
Because you're talking nonsense.
You said
I'm interrupting you, and I know I'm
using your own words.
You're talking nonsense. I did not say they would pay him $1 million. I said he could earn as much as $1 million between his NIL deals at Miami and maybe other deals that an agent could put together for him.
Right. Okay, so we'll call it $1 million. This is NIL money. I don't understand what I'm saying wrong. He could maybe make $1 million is what you're saying, staying here.
Yes, but it's not coming from John Ruiz.
You also said there's no budget. So what I'm saying is that Isaiah Wong should be a backup, because if you have no budget in today's NIL era, you should have 5 starters who are all first-round NBA draft picks. There's no reason not to. I mean, why would you settle for a guy who's a European player, who's a very good NBA, who's a very good college player? Don't get me wrong. Isaiah Wong won the ACC Player of the Year for a reason. Correct. But if you have an unlimited budget, like Gary said, if you can get somebody to $1 million when the best programs in the country have a $2.5 million total budget, you can have 5 NBA first-round draft picks on your team and easily win the national title.
Let Isaiah loose, go to Europe and play. We don't want you anymore because we're going to try to get somebody else.
You're still not listening. If you're right and there's an unlimited budget, he can come back and be a backup, because you know what? He'll be a backup to an NBA first-round guard. He would be. Like, that's just the truth. I mean, he's not an NBA first-round player, and he struggled in some games against some better defenders. That's the truth. Great player. Great college player. Don't get me wrong. Now, here's the problem that I see, and this is something nobody's talking about. You know, there was a reason, in my opinion, with the NIL, with the real NIL era being here for the first time, in my opinion, in full force this year. I think there's a reason why you saw a 9 seed, a 5 seed, and the best seed being a 4 seed in the Final Four. And I think part of it is there's this new culture of money and getting paid to play, which is fine. That's the new rules. But when you hit the postseason and you're an NBA first-round talent and you got a big NIL deal wherever you are, you understand you're playing a certain number of games. You're getting paid by the month or by the year. You're not getting paid by the game. You're not getting paid by performance. The contracts don't work that way. Now you hit the postseason. These guys in the real world are risking injury every game they play, whether it's twisted ankle, whatever, and they're not getting paid. They're playing for free in their minds in the postseason. Well, you're playing for the love of the sport. I get it, but you're risking injury. You're already getting paid, but you're getting paid. You're not getting anything extra if you score 100 points and help your team to a national title. You're still not getting anything extra if you're going to the NBA the next year. You're not coming back to college anyway if you're a first rounder. So I think there's a reason why these teams that had 2 or more first round projected draft picks just fell by the wayside immediately. I don't think their guys necessarily bought into the culture the way the Miami guys did. And that's maybe an argument why you don't want 5 first-round NBA guys on your team next year. Maybe it's okay
So
to return 4 starters and add a big man and go about it that way. Because you know what? It worked fine this year. They were this close to a national title. So I don't think you need an unlimited NIL budget. I think they're fine with what they did this year. I don't think you need to give Isaiah Wong $1 million because I don't think other schools are going to give Isaiah Wong $1 million. I think you have to make sure that you're able to keep the starters, the 4 starters, get them back, add a 5th big man to help Norchad, get some depth if possible, which is tough through the portal, but hopefully through recruiting and developing the guys that are younger. I wasn't trying to project. I was just messing with Gary. I wasn't trying to say get rid of everybody and just bring in these NBA first rounders.
I'm glad you were just messing with me. Of course, you're totally contradicting yourself.
Correct, because I was messing with you.
Okay.
But in a perfect world, would a fan rather have 5 first-round NBA players on their team? Probably. But what I'm saying is, in the way NIL, in the NIL era, it may not be the best course of action. Now, Gary's whole theory of no budget, get the best players, you're saying let's get 5 NBA players, which I'm not sure would work, but that's for you guys. I'm presenting both sides.
I'm almost full, Matt. I'm not saying get 5 NBA players. I'm saying go get the center from Michigan. Do whatever you got to do to get him. He is the final piece that will make you a national title contender next year. Okay, you got Pack, Wong, Poplar, O'Meara, who can now be a power forward, and this freaking beast of a center from Michigan. You start with that 5, with everything else that they got coming back. They are a national title contender from day one that they start next season. I hope they can make it happen. I feel certain that kid is going to be on their radar, and we'll continue to monitor it. But all in all, I think we would agree on this. Phenomenal basketball season. And these kids got a lot to be proud of. And I hope that all you guys that are out there watching had a chance to engage here over these last few weeks and enjoy this run. It was I was there for every bit of it. I went to all 3 tournaments, and I'm glad I did because those kids deserved the coverage that we gave them. And it might, everything aside that we're talking about here with the hope for next year, it may never happen again. I mean, you just don't get a ton of opportunities to make the Final Four. So it was a special time, and I hope that all you guys out there had a chance to enjoy it and engage. All right, now let's shift gears because there was another great accomplishment this past weekend. For the first time since 2001, the Miami Hurricanes baseball team swept Florida State in a series. And Matt, I don't know. I'm beyond the magnificence of that. I mean, I've been watching Canes baseball going back 40 plus years, but that's a great accomplishment anytime you sweep Florida State. And you've had a chance to be around these baseball kids a little bit, and they've had some ups and downs so far this year, but this one's certainly an up.
I don't understand. You're obviously not following FSU baseball. They lost 8 out of 9 going into this.
Doesn't matter.
They were swept. Okay.
They're still FSU, and it's still the first time since 2001 that.
FSU's terrible. But listen, the baseball team got swept last weekend, so of course getting a sweep now is huge. You got to get on track at some point, and hopefully this spurs them to greater heights. But no, this is not the same FSU team that Miami's been used to seeing. They should have swept them, and they did sweep them. They did what they were supposed to do. They almost lost the second game. They pulled it out. And the other 2 they dominated, which they should have. This is not like this Miami baseball team's been up and down. It's not as bad as some people might think. Some people are freaking out the baseball team's not good and why aren't we better? They started ranked, I think, in the top 10. Now they're barely in the top 25. But the baseball's a long season. It's a lot of different pieces that have to come together. They have a couple, some new hitters in the lineup, and they're just sort of figuring things out. The hitters aren't, are sort of struggling. They struggled at times. They look really good this weekend, obviously, but they've struggled at times. And, you want to be at your best late in the year, especially in baseball. That's just the way it is. If you're playing really good baseball at the end, it doesn't matter if you're not a super regional host, you'll be okay. So I'm not concerned about Miami. Miami's going to be in a regional. Will they be a regional host? Probably. Will they be a super regional host? Very, very up in the air right now. If that's the case, maybe even, based on what we've seen so far, probably not. But again, they can turn things around. The pitching staff's what concerns me the most. They've got to find some answers there. So there are definitely some problems with this team. But look, sweeping FSU is always great, right? I mean, like Gary said, who cares if they were 1-8 the previous 9 games? Doesn't matter. You still swept FSU.
Right. So be positive. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of the recruiting coverage that we have on the site, and also, and then we'll get into a little spring football talk. They had a scrimmage on Saturday, but there's a 5-star defensive lineman named David Stone who keeps coming back to Coral Gables. That's a good sign, I think. And he's not ready to say that he's going to Miami or anything like that. But Matt, I mean, you've been involved in recruiting coverage for a couple decades. When a kid shows this level of interest, coming back, I guess 3 really consecutive times in a short span, that's usually a pretty good sign.
I mean, yeah, it's certainly not a bad sign. It's a sign that he's extremely interested. It's a sign that he's probably trying to figure things out fairly early in the process, which a lot of kids like to do now. You hear a lot of Oklahoma with him. So, there's going to be work to do. And, again, it's great to get early commitments. And I think Miami will get their share. They haven't had many now, but I don't think they've really been stressing about it at all because official visits haven't even started yet. Let the kids take officials. What you don't want to have happen, and what we've seen so many times in the past, is a bunch of kids commit early and wind up decommitting, and it throws a real monkey wrench into your real key recruiting time because other prospects pay attention, right? And they see, why are these kids all decommitting? They were committed, now they're decommitting. So that's the last thing you want. It makes other potential prospects that will come to your program question, well, what's going on here? So you want to make sure you're getting kids that not only are your type of player, your level of player, your level of culture that you're going to want in the future, but also recruits that are going to stick. And you only know that by getting to know the families, by getting to know the recruits, by getting to know people at their school that are important to them, by getting to know mentors, forming that bond, making sure they're fully on board when they commit, and keeping it that way, which is what this staff does so well. Although there's a lot of new staff members. By staff, I mean Mario Cristobal, which is constant contact. They don't let up at all any second of any day, and they are always on top of what school's trying to push and get this prospect to be swayed. So, to me, I know some people are concerned, well, why don't we have more commitments? Why are we ranked so low? Like, it doesn't matter. You get the guys who are going to be good enough, who are going to stick in the class. They'll be fine at the end of the day. This will be a top 10 class at the end of the day. I have no doubt about it, notwithstanding a horrible season, which I'm not anticipating. 7 or 8 wins, they should get that, if not more. And that'll be enough to be able to convince recruits that you'll play early. We're building a culture. We're building a program. Look what we've done in the past. Look at the coaches we have, and look at the NIL program we have. Get them here, develop them. Future's bright, blah, blah, blah. I'm so negative, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Fill in the adjective here to call.
A lot of people out there consume with your negativity. I'll tell you that.
It's not negative. It's called realism. Like, I know people want me to say how great everything is constantly. That's not me. I'm not being negative in my mind. I'm not thinking, oh, I want them to lose. I'm a Miami fan. Nobody wants Miami to do better than I do. It's not fun covering a bad team. It's Stockholm syndrome. I've been covering a bad team for 20 years. I'm stuck in a corner, with my, capturers, with my, whatever you want to call them, everybody ranging from Larry Coker to Randy Shannon to Al Golden to Manny Diaz. Those are my captors. They put me in a cell and they said, we're not going to be good to you. We're going to make your life miserable for 20 years. And this is what you see. But at the same time, after that amount of time of being a captive to these people and this program, honestly, over 20 years in football, you sort of say to yourself, show me. I keep hearing the same stuff every spring. I keep hearing, oh, look at Jacoby George is the next Charleston Rambo. He had 3 catches and an 80-yard touchdown. Ja'Cory Brown ran in a long touchdown. Oh my gosh, we're back. We're going to be amazing. Every spring you hear the same stuff about guys who are flashing and are going to be amazing. And then you get to the results that you don't want to see, which is why I have tended over the last several years to correctly err on the side of caution and not been as homerish as Miami fans and some of the media members who don't want the blowback, quite honestly. There's members of the media who tell me privately, one of them who's covered the team for over 20 years, that they think if Miami gets to 6 wins this year, it would be a success. But they won't say it publicly because, God forbid, fans get mad at them. I don't care. Look at what else can happen to this. What can you guys out there do to me that hasn't already been done to me over 20 years covering and watching this program? since I was at the 2001 Rose Bowl enjoying that, Like, there's nothing you can do to me. So I'm just going to tell you the truth. Like, I don't care if you guys get mad at me. It's the truth. It's not funny. It's the truth. Like, why is that funny?
I think if they only win 6,
you laugh at kidnap people who have Stockholm syndrome because that's what you're doing. It's not funny.
After going 5-7, if they go 6-6 next year, people are not going to be happy. So that might be your reality, but nobody wants to.
I didn't say. Do you even listen to me? I didn't say 6 wins. I said 7 or 8 wins, and they should get more than that. I said there's a reporter who has covered the team for over 20 years who privately told me he thinks they will win 6 games this year if they're lucky. That's not me that said that. He told me that, but he won't say it publicly because fans would get mad at him.
Get mad. Yeah, they will be mad if that's the result.
Yeah, that's not me saying that. I think 7 to 8 wins or more.
I agree. Yeah, my number I think is going to be 8. Go from 5 to 8. That would be a sign of progress. They're going to be a better football team, but are they going to be a complete football team? I don't know about that. But we got a lot of time to talk about that and maybe some weak spots that can and some of those might get fortified in the portal in May. We'll see. All right. Azumi Charles spent some time with Naples, Florida 4-star safety Kensley Faustin. We have that the product of that work on the website today with our Inside the Lines presentation and story. He's one of the top players in Florida in the 2024 cycle. And Miami is one of several Power 5 programs that are chasing his commitment. So make sure you guys check out both the feature and the video there. Miami has also climbed in on Horn Lake, Mississippi, Lake Cormorant. Man, that name of that school is a mouthful. He's a 2025 4-star linebacker by the name of Jacoby Hobson. We catch up with him and start letting you get familiar with him. We also have a story on 2024 Blountstown, Florida. Man, I never heard of some of these towns. Horn Lake, Mississippi, Blountstown, Florida. But Blountstown has a 2024 4-star defensive lineman by the name of Artavius Jones. He talked about his recent visit to Miami and how he sees Mario Cristobal building a special program with the Hurricanes. So check that one out. Also a story on Hollywood, Florida 2024 running back Quis Wheatley Humphrey. He's feeling right at home at Miami after his second visit to Coral Gables in 3 weeks. He's been there almost as much as David Stone. Another area visitor was 2024 Miami Edison defensive lineman Denelson Exume, and he returned to UM for the first time since receiving an offer from the Hurricanes and talked to us about his feelings on being on campus. We also have a story with Modesto, California Central Catholic 2024 offensive tackle Manasi Itite. God, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He had a great time.
Do you watch him? Do you watch him Practical Jokers?
No,
because they have this, and it's sad to say I have watched it without my children. It's pathetic, I know, but they have this bit where they pronounce names into a waiting room, and they just make up these names, silly names. And like, you need to learn to pronounce these names correctly because it's like an episode of Impractical Jokers watching you try to pronounce these names.
Some of these names are very, very tough, and they're not exactly household names yet. Anyway, Tite, he was impressed on his visit to Miami. He will be taking an official visit this summer, and I promise by the time he makes that official, I will make sure that I'm pronouncing his name properly. I believe I am Manasseh Itite, so I hope I've got it right. But if I don't, we'll get that straightened out. One guy I know I'm pronouncing his name right is Zaquan Patterson. I know him. I know I got it right because he is a very, very key target in this 2024 recruiting cycle. He's the 4-star safety from Chaminade, Madonna, and we got an RPM prediction on where he's going to go. I wonder what school that is. What'd you say, Matt?
I was going to say his name's pronounced Stephen Wagner, RPM prediction to Miami. That's how you pronounce his name.
We also have a breakdown of 5 2024 targets whose interest in Miami got elevated in the past month. A lot of recruiting going on with spring practices, a lot of kids coming through campus. So you're starting to see some movement here in recruiting, and the commitments are going to come later on in the spring and summer. Don't panic about that, but we are starting to see more kids showing more interest in Miami. And like I said, we do have a breakdown of 5 2024 targets whose interest in the Canes rose over the last month. So tons and tons of recruiting coverage. We got the baseball coverage. We got basketball covered for you. All sorts of things for you this morning at CaneSport.com. Now, Matt, I want to finish with scrimmage talk. We were banned from watching the scrimmage. We were not allowed to be out there. We had to dig for details here and there. The people that I spoke to that were there are very bullish on what they see. Not a big surprise. They are typically people that are allowed to practice, are people connected to the program in some way, shape, or form. They are going to be extremely biased in what they are looking at. There's no question about it, but it's still helpful for us to get some different opinions. Hearing great things about the quarterbacks. I'm hearing great things about the offensive line. I'm hearing great things about linebacker Francisco Maigoa. Beyond that, I would say status quo. But Matt, any parting thoughts from things that you were able to glean from what we were able to find out from the scrimmage?
I just wish that they would trust the media to be able to watch some of the scrimmage.
I agree.
Because you hear things from people and you don't know their agendas. You're hearing it secondhand, sometimes even third hand. And it's like rumors. And then Mario Cristobal goes on. For some reason, they let him do an interview with, who was it afterwards? I don't know, Don Bailey or somebody. And like, it's not even about the scrimmage. You know, it's a 2 minute,
not giving away anything.
It's a 2 minute, 24-second interview after the post-scrimmage interview, the big media availability afterwards with the guy who, you know, he's basically paid by UM. So he's not going to be like, you know, what was the problem with whatever. It's just, oh, coach, what do you want to talk about? And Mario just wanted to talk about the culture of the program and how it's getting better. And like, you know, it's I don't know if the word's annoying. I don't know what the word is, but I've always found that when players know they're being watched by media who know what they're talking about, and it's, you know, the media is not going to be giving away the trade secrets. We're not, you know, I mean, we are schmucks, but we're not schmucky enough to like say, here's a picture of all the formations Miami's using, you know, and stuff like that. Like, all we want to know is some stats, Mario. Like, God forbid, you know, they used to actually read the stats because they have a statistician there. They have people who keep stats for the staff. Oh, Mario, they used to have the coach come up and say, you know, Ja'Cory Brown hit this many passes out of this many for this many yards with this many touchdowns. So-and-so ran for this many yards, da-da-da. And it doesn't give you a whole picture, but you know what? The fans get excited about it. The fans like to see some results. And the staff's new philosophy is don't say anybody's doing well except for Matt Lee, because Matt Lee apparently has some sort of secret FBI file on Mario Cristobal where Mario has to just constantly
mention Matt Lee is a flat stud, man.
Matt Lee, the reason they mention Matt Lee, the reason they mention Matt Lee is because he is Casey Jones. You know, he's the one guy on the entire team that, like, you could cut off his leg and he'll just hop around and try to kick you in the face, you know, and that's what Mario wants. What's troubling is that Mario can still only say one player who's doing that. You know, when Mario says, here's 15 Matt Lees on this team, one at every position, plus these extra guys, like, that's when you know things are good. Right now, he's got one guy.
Javion Cohen, also on the O-line.
He's not singled out Javion Cohen. If you ask about Javion Cohen, he said something about Javion Cohen. He unsolicited said, there's only one guy I'm going to mention, and it's Matt Lee. And, like, when he has 10 guys who are Matt Lee, 20 guys who are Matt Lee, 30 guys who are Matt Lee, that's really when you know the culture's taken hold. It's troubling when you've only got one guy that you can say, hey, this guy's doing it right. Like, that's basically what Mario told us.
We asked him the other day who was doing well at spring practice. I think he mentioned 22 names.
Yeah, but that's not the context.
That doesn't make the cut for you.
No, because he was making a joke at the media's expense. That's not when he was being serious. He said, I'm only going to name one. He says, I don't like to single out players. He literally said that. I don't like to single out players, but I'm going to single out one player. And he said, Matt Lee. And then he said, why? And that's okay, but you need more than one guy that's going to have a cutoff leg and kick you in the face, you know? But anyway, my point is this. Like, I'm a big believer that the coach should let the media watch scrimmages and practices, because I feel the players, when the eyes are on them, they're not lollygagging. There's accountability. There's not accountability when there's coaches there, but it's like when you go with your parents to a restaurant and you have to have good manners. Like, you're going to have decent manners most of the time, but you're not that worried about it. There's nobody watching you from the table next to you that's going to tell your parents, hey, that guy, he just ate with his hands when you were looking towards the dessert section over there, you know? Like, where the people at the next table who are telling the coaches through our articles, like, hey, when you weren't looking, we saw this guy drop a pass and just walk back into the huddle and not do any push-ups, because we have seen that in the 3 or 4 periods that we've watched, you know. And there should be that, you know, to me, it's like we're the fact checkers, you know. The coaches can't see everything. They can look at the film afterwards, of course, and pour through it and all that other stuff. They're not looking for the lollygaggers in those situations. But, you know, they'll see it if they really want to. But I think the players in particular will feel a different onus on themselves. And players have told me in the past, like, when we're out there, they feel a different sense of urgency because they know we're watching them. And I don't know why it's different when your coaches are watching you versus when the media is also watching you. But when the media is watching, they feel like they're on TV and they have to perform, I guess. I don't know. Whatever it is, I don't understand why Mario doesn't tap into that and, like, let some people, you know, whether it's 3 media members, you know, each time, you know, here, these 3 media outlets get the first scrimmage, these 3 get the second scrimmage, these 3 get the third, and it's going to be pool information, whatever. There's ways to do it, but he won't do it. He won't do it. He's got the whole Nick Saban philosophy. Nobody gets to see anything. And it works at Alabama, but Alabama's got a different level than Miami. And to me, you know, I know Mario wants to do Alabama at Miami, but, you know, I want Miami to just be different than everyone else. Miami was the last program in the country, or one of the last 2 or 3 programs in the country that had an open locker room and that followed NFL policies. And then that went by the wayside thanks to Kellen Winslow Jr. and his rant. But to me, like, I would love to see Miami just be different and somehow be different. Whether that's letting reporters watch scrimmage, I don't think that's going to be the biggest difference in the world. But there's got to be some things that Miami can say, we're not afraid to show you what we have. We're that good. You know, like, where's the bravado they used to have? Ultimately, we're going to hide. You know, oh my God, check in the garage. There might be one fan trying to watch practice. Get him arrested. Get him out of there. You know, like, what is this? You know, what have we become? It used to be, we don't care what you see. We're that good. We'll beat you anyway. Like, now it's like they're hiding. I don't understand the whole thing. Like, God forbid, like, we're told, like, don't report what's happening in the scrimmage. Don't report what you're hearing on this or that. Like, what is that? Who cares? Why can't we get fans excited about some things? Why can't we say that sometimes maybe things aren't as good as they should be when you know you're going to see it 3 months, 4 months from now anyway? Like, I legit don't understand the philosophy. And I mean, here's another truth. The sports information department, like, they treat the media like the enemy. Like, we found out 5 minutes, we got no availability before the scrimmage. We knew that. 5 minutes before Mario's interview, if you want to call it an interview, with Don Bailey, who's great, by the way. Don Bailey's great, but, you know, he's the voice of the Canes for a reason. And, like, 5 minutes before, I get an email like, in 5 minutes, we're going to send you something. The night, you know, this makes media crazy too. People want to prepare for interviews, right? You have a practice Tuesday and Thursday mornings. You're waking up really early, especially some of the reporters up in Broward who have to beat rush hour. They're waking up at 5, 6 in the morning to get down here by 8 o'clock. And the UM won't send out their media information on who's, you know, the 4 or 5 people we're talking to until 9:45 p.m. the night before, 10 o'clock the night before. And I don't care. I'll stay up till whatever. I'm a reporter. But some of these reporters have said, listen, can you just send it out a couple hours earlier? I'd love to be able to do some research and really be able to ask good questions and the availability after the practice and have some research on every one of these guys. They won't accommodate them. And it's not right. None of it's right. I don't get it. And I hope that how they treat the media is not a microcosm of this program, because it's not real good in terms of how they're treating us. Was that my
okay.
was that my DNR? That's my DNR for the year.
Point well taken. Good. You know, quality DNR there. It could definitely be better at times, but anyway, that's going to do it for today. For Good Morning CaneSport. Now that we let Matt get everything off his chest. You can
cut out those last 5 minutes. Nobody cares about how the media is treated anyway. Just cut it out.
No, they do care because they want the information that we provide and that we can provide. And I think they do care. So, you know, just know we're always doing the best.
Let me ask you, why do you think they're being so secret about not even giving out stats? Like, why that? All we want stats after a scrimmage, let's say. What's the harm?
I can't explain it. I don't see the harm in letting people know who's doing well, who's not doing well in spring, who's making moves.
Right. It's just, to me,
improved.
It's just,
I mean, what's wrong with that?
It's to punish the media, and it all winds up doing is punishing fans. I hate to cut you off, but I'm a little agitated about it. So
I noticed. I think you should go out today and catch some stone crabs.
I'm going out this afternoon,
Yeah.
baby. I'm going to be out in the water.
Take out all your anger out on those little crabbies.
I treat those crabs with such love and respect. You have no idea.
You take both their claws.
Listen, it's just like Nigel Pack losing his shoe, okay?
They go back into the water defenseless.
It's like they don't have their sneakers anymore. They're like, I don't have my sneakers. Guess what? A month from now, the little equipment guy's going to run and give them 2 new sneakers, 2 new claws. That's how long it takes to grow them back, okay? Not a big deal. They don't mind.
All right, we thank you so much for starting out your day with us. As always, if you like this show, you like our YouTube channel, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. And more so than anything, please, please, please subscribe to CaneSport.com. Your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every single day to try to enhance your fan experience. And hopefully for the $8 and change a month that it costs, that you feel that you're getting exceptional value there. And even now we do have an introductory special, so it'll cost you even less than that for the next few months. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time, everybody.